In this video, I will show you how to use the iPad for live monitoring. Before we start, I want to show you some tips for live monitoring in terms of where to put the receiver and where to put the iPad. So first of all, we want to keep the main receiver near the coaches or near the bench. And also, you should use a tripod and extend the tripod at its highest height. And the receiver's logo should always be facing the players or facing the pitch. And also, you should make sure avoid obstacles between the receiver and the players. That includes metal fences or walls, etc. And in terms of the iPad, you want to keep it as close to the coach as possible and as close to the receiver as possible. Ideally, the range between the iPad and the main receiver should be within 20 meters. Avoid obstacles between the receiver and the iPad. That includes human body, metal fences, columns, and walls. For example, if you are holding the iPad and walking away from the receiver, your body will be obstructing the Wi-Fi signal, so the connection will be lost. So make sure the iPad is really close to the main receiver. Cases you would have a second receiver, we recommend putting the secondary receiver at the other side of the main receiver, at the other side of the pitch. Especially, for example, when a group of players are training at the corner, so the secondary receiver can cover more players from a better angle. And also, we need to extend the tripod at its highest, and the receiver's logo should always be facing the players on the pitch as well. Again, we want to avoid any obstacles between the receiver and the players. Just a note, the secondary receiver, it doesn't connect to the iPad. It's collecting the data from the devices and sending it back to the main receiver. Then it's the main receiver that's sending the data to the iPad. So you still need to make sure the iPad or the coach is always close to the main receiver, not the secondary receiver. To check how many receivers you have connected, on the iPad app, on the top right corner, you can click this icon and then you can see if one or two receivers are connected and what is the status of that receiver. Also, you can check the status of the devices connected. Also, some tips about live monitoring. We recommend on the day of live monitoring, always connect the GPS devices to the laptop and perform a sync, especially when you haven't used the GPS system for several days. Please connect it to the laptop and sync before you use it. And also at the beginning, if we want to update the information on the iPad, for example, if you have added new players or if you have changed the device ID of the players, please connect the iPad to a normal internet, not to the receiver, but to a normal internet, and perform a sync or log out and log in again so it can update the cloud information. And after the live session, if you want to sync the iPad information to the cloud or to your laptop, please disconnect the connection with the receiver Wi-Fi and switch to normal internet. Use the normal internet to sync the iPad. And when you go back to the laptop software, please sync first before you do data transfer. If you do data transfer first, the iPad information will be lost. So please sync first before you download the data. And the last one, if you had any issues about live monitoring with the iPad, please take as many photos or videos or screenshots as possible so we can understand what was the issue, what was the environment, what was the setup. And also, please save and export the log file from the iPad so we can investigate what was the issue. Okay, so these are some initial tips for live monitoring. Now let's look at how exactly we can do live monitoring with the iPad. First of all, we need the white receiver for live monitoring. If you don't do live monitoring, you don't need the white receiver. But if you want to do live monitoring, you need one or two receivers. And in this video, it shows how you should set up the receiver and where you should place the receiver. As you can see here, you have a tripod and you want to extend the tripod to very high and fix the receiver at the top and place it around the midline of the pitch. To turn on the receiver, you can press the button, and here is how you can fix it on the tripod. You can adjust the angle to make sure the logo is always facing the pitch, is always facing the players. It's actually recommended to place the receiver a little bit further from the sideline so it has a better angle. And the first LED shows the battery status. If it's green, that means it has enough battery. If it becomes red, then it means it only has less than 1 hour battery. And the second light is about data transmission. After a few seconds, it will be flashing blue. That means it's ready to work. Now it's flashing blue. Okay, now you can connect the iPad with the receiver. For the first time, when you use the iPad, you have to download the app from the App Store. So you can go to the App Store and type Catapult Vector Live. There are several apps, but please download this Catapult Vector Live. It's this one. Okay. Now when you are running the app, you can put the same username and the password, and then you can select the region here. If you're in Asia, you can select Australia, Asia. If you're in the Middle East, you can select Europe and Middle East. If you're in China, then you can select China. Please make sure you are connected to a normal internet. And now we are already in. Now we can try to connect to the receiver's Wi-Fi. To connect to the receiver's Wi-Fi, it is recommended to go to the iPad Wi-Fi settings. So you can go to the iPad settings and go to Wi-Fi, and then you will see Catapult receiver appearing in the Wi-Fi list, like this one. Then you can select it, and it will ask you to enter a password. And the password is at the back of the receiver. After the receiver is connected, you will see a check mark here. Then you know it's connected. Then you can go back to the app. In the app, make sure you select standalone mode. So it means you only use iPad for live monitoring. And then you can turn on the devices. Here on the top right corner, you can also check how many receivers are connected, what is the ID, what is the battery, and what is the signal strength. Now you can turn on devices, and after a few seconds, you will see the devices are detected by the iPad. It says 2 athletes found. And you can also go to the device status to see which devices are connected. If they are wearing the heart rate vest, you can also see the heart rate status here. Now we can start the activity. You can press start activity. You can type the activity name here, or you can also change it at a later stage. Then you can select the day code or other activity tags if you like. Okay, now we can create the activity and start the session. Once you're here, you won't see any data yet because you haven't started a period yet. If you want to start a period, you can click this plus button on the top left. But before you do that, it's recommended to enable this auto add athletes. You can click the button at the bottom right and enable this auto add athletes. What it does is once you create a period, it will automatically add all the athletes into the period. So you don't need to manually do it. Now I enable it and create a period. And now you will see the time is running here and you should see the data is updating. If you turn off this auto add athletes feature, if you add a new period here, you will see there's no data and there's no athletes in this period. It's useful when you have several groups training together. For example, you have the field players and also you have the GK. They are in different groups, but they are training at the same time. So you can create 2 concurrent periods and add different players into different periods. Here's how you can do it. So you can click the period button to create another period. You'll see we have 2 periods now. And for the first period, we can add player 1. We can select the player and plus PIP. And then for the second player, we can select the second player and plus PIP. And then we can edit the period name. We can type in different languages here. And also you can edit the other period as well. This one is GK. So if you want to see GK's data, you just click on this GK period, then this is GK's data. And then if you click on the first period, it's showing you the other player's data. Okay, now you will see the data is different for different groups. And now let's create another period. But before you create a period, you have to stop the previous period first, because one player cannot be in 2 concurrent periods at the same time. You can select the player here and then press this plus PIP to add the players in. If you want to delete or remove a player from the period, you can select the period and select the player and then press this minus PIP, which is removing the player from the period. Okay, and then let's rename the period again. And you can switch between different periods to see the data. And if I want to stop the period, you can click this button to stop the period. Now I'm adding 2 players back into one period again. And you can change the view of the players, whether it's list view or tile view. And you can sort them by different jersey numbers or by last name or by first name. And at the bottom, you can switch between different views. You can switch between chart or table or heart rate data only. So usually if you want to see a lot of parameters, you can use the table view. Or if you only want to look at heart rate data, you can switch to this heart rate view. And here's how you can update the parameters. You can click this parameter button to select the parameters or change the parameters that you want to see. Down here, you will see all the selected parameters. You can clear them all, or you can delete one of them. And then on the left, you can select which type of parameters that you want to choose. For example, if you can select some basic parameters like time, total distance, distance per minute, etc., etc. If you want to look at something like high-speed running distance or custom parameters, you can go to custom, and then you can select high-speed distance. And within this high-speed distance, you can select which bands to include in the high-speed distance. For example, if you want to see band 4, band 5, band 6, then you can just click these buttons to include the speed zones that you want to see. And you can do the same for accelerations and decelerations as well. Okay, after you selected the parameters that you want to see, including the heart rate data as well, you can click done. And here is where you can see the data that you just selected. If you have a lot of players, you can also add an average line here or highlight the top 5 or the bottom 5 players. You can select here whether you want to view data for athletes or for each period. If you want to see the full activities session, you can click on this activity timeline. If you only want to see, for example, just GK data, then you can click on GK. Or if you only want to see 3 against 3, then you can click this 3v3. and you can look at the details within each period. If you want to compare your data with a threshold, you can set the threshold on the cloud and then apply the threshold. And here, for example, for the player load data, this player is already highlighted because it's already achieving the target that we set. And you can do the same for the other parameters as well. You can also go to this comparison tab to compare one player against another player, or compare one player with a group of players, or compare it with the rest of the team. And you can select which parameters to be included in this radar chart. And down here you can see the chart of different parameters as well. And here you can have a chart view of the players. You can have the bar chart here. Also, you can select different parameters that you want to display in the chart. And you can select how you want to sort the parameters. You can also select which type of chart that you want to use. You can add a line in the chart as well. Here is the scattered plot. It's most useful when you want to compare two different types of parameters, for example, internal load against external load. You can put internal load, such as heart rate data, in the x-axis, and then you can put external load, such as player load or distance or high-speed distance, in the y-axis. Then you can see the responses for the external stimulus. This is very handy. And in the heart rate view, you can select 3 heart rate related parameters, and it will be color coded based on your threshold. For example, it can become red when it's above 90% of his own heart rate max, or becoming yellow when it's above 70% of its individual heart rate max. Here is how you can adjust the thresholds for the heart rate. You can also create different athlete groups. For example, defenders, you can add all the defenders in one group and add all the attackers in one group. So you can quickly view the data for different groups by clicking this Add Group button. Okay, now the training session has ended. We can click the Stop button, and then you will see a button of Sync to the Cloud. If you want to sync to the cloud, you have to disconnect the iPad from the receiver's Wi-Fi first, and then switch to a normal internet, whether it's your hotel Wi-Fi or it's your mobile phone's hotspot. Anyways, you have to connect to a normal internet. And once you connect to a normal internet, you can click the Sync to Cloud button. And you'll see it's syncing. if the internet is not good, or if you didn't connect to a normal internet, it will say saved locally. In this case, just double check your internet connection, and then you can go to the settings button on the bottom right. Now I'm connecting to my mobile phone's hotspot. And then you can click this sync button to sync again. Usually it will take a few seconds. Now you'll see a green icon here. It shows the activity is successfully synced to the cloud. But remember, the information from the iPad is only the periods that you created and which users or which athletes are in the periods. The data is still not synced to the cloud. It's only syncing the periods here. So you still need to do the data download. So after you successfully synced the information to the cloud, you don't need the iPad anymore. You can go back to your laptop and go to your OpenField console and perform a sync. So after the sync, it will pop up a message to tell you the sync is successful. And then you can actually go to start and go to the activity list. You should be able to already see the activity created on your iPad. So once you see this, you can connect all the devices with your laptop and do the data transfer as normal. So please note, if you are doing live monitoring with the iPad, please do the sync first and then connect the devices, do the data transfer. After the data transfer, you should be able to see all the data in your last activity. You can check your last activity. If you're happy with the data and the periods there, then you can perform a final sync. This will sync all the data to the cloud, and then you can check your report on the cloud.